How you guys doing? Is anybody here? Oh, well, let me explain what I want to talk about today. And this is about what they call outhouse movements. We've talked about in-house movements a whole lot, but there's not a lot of discussion about outhouse movements other than the fact that they're pointed to and say, oh, they don't have in-house, they have one of these movements. And so I want to talk about those and others. Hi, Mark. How you doing? Audio and video. Oh, good. Thank you. That saved me a lot of time on that. But hi, Yoko. Usually we think of in-house as automatically better. And there may be a reason for that. And we'll talk about that too, I thought. Hi, 9/11. How are you? Joseph, good to see you. And the, but I think, there's a lot of talk about, oh my God, you can get into the nuances of little bitty changes and little things with the dial or the case or the hands or something that people roll around a lot about. But I think it's really a good idea to say, hey, let's take a look at all the movements, not just the ones that are in house. We're creeping up to 90 degrees this coming week. Yuck. We're just in the process of getting a whole new air conditioning system. Right now, it's 83. But see, today it's 83. This is New England. Tomorrow, the high is going to be 66. And it doesn't get much beyond 75 after that. So it I got a feeling we'll be there soon enough. Hoping not. Hey, how you doing, Brian, Damon? Good to see you guys. Um, so let's talk about these the kind of movements right now. Uh, for the last few years, it seems forever sometimes. Hi, Goldfinger. We've been involved. Louis has, and some of the guys on who get lost and come here. Um, we've been dealing very directly with bespoke movements, and the the elements of those. You can have certain special things, like ours. Our first two had the Agonaise gearing, which had these little springs within the gears, so you have this perfectly smooth turning of the second hand, and it had the Agon pit regulator, so that you could do regulation of both some other things like that. The one we're working on now has double, um, it has two different uh, snail cams. One is a double snail cam, and the other is single. So we're really into, we have to get into. There's a whole lot, and so we're looking at a movement that's being developed along the lines of what we'd like to happen. But for the most part, the we don't. I mean, most of the watches I have, other than my Larique watches, I've had no say. I have no idea of how the movement was developed or any of the different options that are available. Some watches and some I have are have they'll have a module by somebody else. I think my Chanel, Monsieur Michel, Chanel Monsieur One has some little thing in there by what's his name? Is it not Raymond? It's Romain Gattier. So they're all little other kinds of things like that. So let's talk about those. First of all, let me just bring up. I was going to bring up some. Hi, John. I think the movement is important when choosing a watch. In-house movements should should yeah, we got this is why I sort of using the term outhouse movements as opposed to in-house may sound pejorative, and putting up an outhouse as a up there with it may appear to be, but it really isn't. I think what we what would be fun to talk about um, are ones that are outhouse. And hi Tim, yeah, the Vacheron Constantin 4100 is a sweetheart of a movement. Yeah, Brian, yeah, they are a consideration, but the consideration. They should be, but they're not. Okay, hang on a second. Let me crank this guy up. Okay, this is, I just threw this together pretty quickly. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Um, uh, Here, there are three different movements that are very common. The Salida, to a large extent, let me see if you can see. Oh, yeah, you can do that. The Salida, to a large extent, was simply it came to replace ETA. First, ETA couldn't produce enough, and so they gave some of the ones that they needed a lot of. They gave them all of the I guess blueprints and everything else, along with the permission to create them, so that ETA could meet its demand. And finally, ETA, or I should say SWAT, said, "Okay, that's it. We're not going to have we're not going to sell ETAs to outside of Swatch." You can see on the one that there it is up there, on the one is Tag Heuer, but it's an ETA movement. The one in the middle is Myota, and Myota is one I found out. I thought it was from Salida, but it's not. It's from Citizen. Citizen Watches own that. They also own Frederick Constant and some other ones that are. I think Alpina is another one that they bought that originally were Swiss, and then they became under. Well, they're still Swiss, I guess. But now the Japanese own them, are the people at Citizens do. I'm not sure about Seiko in terms of having. I know that they're which one is it? Soprod A10 was essentially a Seiko 4L that they couldn't sell in Japan because it was a number of reasons, and it became the Soprod A10, and now it's Soprod A something else. Anyway, what I wanted to sort of kick around with you guys is the um, the whole idea of what do we really, when we talk about not in-house movements, besides those three, and I think the reason those threes are brought up so much because they make so many of them, huge numbers of them, and they're very popular among, I don't know, or these micro brands. I guess would be the term for micro brands. And okay, so if a micro brand says, "Look, we're going to make our own movement," instead of using, a Myota or an ETA or a Salida, uh, where could they go from there? That we might want to think about. Um, One of the most obvious places is Vaucher. Okay, there it is. is voiture, and it's suddenly you're paying more than what you were paying for any of the other ones. Hi, Dim 13 or 113 or 131. Just like in that joke about the U.S. football being actually a hand edge, literally, the watch brands existing solely on the off the shelf movement should be named watch case manufacturers. Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting point. They should be called watch case manufacturers. Um, yeah, here's the thing is that you've got is is an iboche the same as getting a movement? Let me explain that. First of all, if you're confused about the meaning of iboche, don't be, because it's been used in several different ways. The most basic ways is are all of the elements that go into a watch, all of the gears and the springs and the balance and all those things, and sort of put it in a box and say, here, you put it together. Now, there are different ways that can be put together. There are companies that were called, I think, establisheurs, but I'm not positive about the name. And what they would do, they would take the iboche and they would make a movement out of it, and then they would sell the movement to a watch company, I guess, who then could be case manufacturers and pop the movement in. They wouldn't even have to mess with the iboche. But some companies, and this is what Jacquet did, and I think to some extent after uh, when Jacquet became La Joux-Perret, what happened was that they were happily making these taking these ETA Boches and making a lot of different kinds of movements. The 736 was a shape movement. It was sort of a rectangular shaped one that was from, we think, but not sure, the ETA 7001, the Pazoo 7001. Streller has done movements for micro brands. Yes, they have. Um, well, they've also done it for some pretty big brands too. I think they've done it for Maurice Lacroix. Streller did Maurice Lacroix's um, chronograph for him. So yeah, that now that see this is why it's important to know about the movement, because you're poking around and all of a sudden kaboom, you find, wow, this is a cool movement. The question is I guess to me is that who really does them? And the reason I say it's become somewhat of a little mystery, not a big mystery, is that there's a lot of secrecy going on. Okay, for example, the Strawman hairspring that is sold by H. Moser Company. I once asked Edward Malin, "Who do you sell it to?" They won't say. They won't tell you. There are a couple companies, Kari Vuitton and MB&F said they use that hairspring, and so does so does Agenor. And but there's so much of that going on now. If you look at I think Festina, is that it? The one that I think it's something like that. Festina, the one that makes the movement for Tudor, and they make them for the J12 for Chanel, but they also make it for Norcane as well. So so there's all of these different little things in there like that. Hi, Rick. How's Texas? We're having sort of a hot Texas day today. Vishahav, how are you? Um, Okay. I'm wearing a perfect example right now. My Chaumet Dandy Arty has an ETA base movement. The addition of Agonor module, lifts the movement to another level. It lifts the whole watch to another level. I think so too. Is that my what's it called? By retrograde, my Harry Winston by retrograde has a base movement of a Girard-Perregaux, but then it has double retrogrades with a module. I mean, it's not just a couple, uh, couple little, you know, stupid dog tricks. There's a whole module that they put in, and it has these double retrogrades that they did for them. And so it's not quite the same as, oh, there's a watch with a Girard-Perregaux in it. Another thing too, for my first overseas, my only overseas really, had a Girard-Perregaux in it, but Vacheron Constantin said, yeah, it did, but we had to do all of this work on it to get it the way we wanted to. And so you have that, and then you also have how much you want to believe it. Okay. Did they just slap it in there and, call it a day, or did they really do something that made it substantially different? Either way, it becomes something that, as collectors, we certainly should know about. Is a Nomos Alpha called an in-house movement? It is. The Nomos Alpha, and this is no secret, that they use the ETA 7001, and they really liked it. And so then they started sort of making it themselves rather than ordering it from ETA, which they couldn't do anyway. They started making something they called the Alpha that was pretty close to the 7001. And I guess at some point, it was really funny because even Nomos, when they were talking about their DUW movements, they talked about those as totally in-house and, in-house invented and everything. They never quite talked that way about the Alpha. The Alpha was, yeah, it's our Alpha. it's our sort of base movement. Hey, Rick, as someone in the budget luxury category, I keep movements in mind for future service costs. Oh boy. I just sent one in for service, and eventually they're going to send me the bill for what it's going to cost to have the service. And it's just a simple service, so it's probably going to set me back a few bucks. This is for a Parmigiani hemisphere. I don't know. I'll just have to wait and see. Streller, Gehrig, Groenfield, and Saponeva. Oh, wow, Damon. I didn't know they had all of those too. I knew about Maurice Lacroix. I didn't know about Gehrig or Groen. Somebody had said something about some aspect of Groenfield and Saponeva. Yeah, he's one of, and then he has his own line of watches. He's got two lines. He's one of the things about Andreas Streller that is really cool. He's got this lines up here, and they start at 50,000, and they go 50,000 for one model. The next up is 85,000, and then above that is over 100,000. And I think Swiss francs, I believe, or euros, one of the two, but I think it's Swiss francs. His stuff, though, what he does is that then he has this special sort of a true entry level watch for 20,000. So there's that it's called the Cerna, and I really like that. That was actually what FP Journe had done. The FP Journe Chronomet Blue was originally set out, so I'm going to have an inexpensive one, relatively speaking. So some guys, who don't quite have that dough. Now the things are, some of them sell for over $100,000. Who knows? Yeah, Dim, I think you're right about that. Yeah, you've got the whatchamacallit, the Alpha is, let's say, Oh, they put some lipstick on a 7001, I'll put it that way. 7001 is a good movement, but it's so small. That's one thing I wasn't crazy about, because you don't have much of a charge with it either. Hey, John, Dubois Depraz is another module maker. Absolutely, they are. Apparently, I was just reading something the other day. I don't remember exactly what I saw the headline, and that apparently they're doing more than just making the module for doing the chronograph or the automatic chronograph. But that would certainly be a good example. In-house will kill some brands. Smaller firms need horizontal compatibility to survive. In-house is a giant commitment for a small brand and is not now how watches were built when they sold millions. You're right. That's true. What we have now, I think, there's a clear split in some respects. On the one hand, you can simply look at the AHCI independents, and you can only become an independent. Pretty much, you got to do your own movement, and at some level, you have to have your own movement. I know a lot of people said, "Well, Kadoki's was only sort of a fix-up of the one by Richard Habring," but I think it was a little more than that. I really do. Kadoki's number 3, I think, is really just one of those watches I think that is going to be in high demand for a while because it's a cool watch, and it does have his own movement in it, and it has a unique shape and everything else. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of overlap because you can't help it. I mean, you've got so many teeth are required in a gear wheel for the minute, hour, and second, and they're all different. And depending on how much you want to put, how big the gears are will depend on how big the movement is which will determine the size of the case. So, your larger cases often have some of your really nice movements in it because they can play around with it. Hi, Andrew. Andrew, I think you're right. Yeah, they say a lot of things on everybody says stuff on their website. You know that it has its origins in the 7001, but sort of all right. So then they sort of took it over and did it themselves. That's enough. Hey, Rancher, how you doing, man? James, Haraj is an effective in-house brand and not a stupid price. Uh, Haraj, was just reading something about Haraj. Yeah, they're a really interesting brand. Um, I don't know as much as I'd like to about their movement, but they do have their own movement. Haraj homage. I don't know. I think it was Haraj. It did something really interesting. They put that module that you plug it in, and you can I guess regulate your movement with their little plug-in. I think you can. I think it's like a curb regulator thing that you can reach. So you plug it in and you do something with it. It looks really interesting. But there was something about Haraz that I suppose that was I didn't have a feeling of Haraz is that you have like some of these kids, like that French kid whose name I can never remember, and then those other two, I think they're from Germany, uh, Peterman and Bidet, and then the kid in France is can never remember his name. Both these guys have talent to the moon, or I guess all three of them. But and they come out in onesies and twosies, very much like your true craftsmen. And so there you have it. Hey, David, Haraj is proud of its new silicone hairspray. They got one of those. No, it was before that. There was something I wasn't too sure about, David. It wasn't, they can have a silicone hairspring and, they can put a battery in it for all I care. Oh, man. Haraj looks modern and original. Maybe I've seen some of the earlier models. I'll put it that way. Okay. Hey, that should have. Okie doke. Oh, wait a minute. Already? It's already been a half hour? My God. The Nomos Alpha. I know. Okay. I guess my time is up. Anyway, there's a whole lot more I want to talk about the outhouse movements and some of the things. I've been reading a lot about them, and there's much more to them than just those three that I showed, and I think it's a point of interest, I think, for collectors to find out, first of all, how to discover something like the Jaeger-LeCoultre movement in the polo pony guy, Ralph Lauren watch. And that Ralph Lauren sports watch has a Jaeger-LeCoultre. There's another one with a Jaeger-LeCoultre that Van Cleef and Arpels has. Really a nice watch. So you can find some watches that are like, well, who would think that Ralph Lauren would have a really tip-top movement? For that matter, who thought Chanel would? But they do. Are the early Parmigiani all in-house movements? It depends on, JB, it depends on how early you mean. I think if you're talking about sort of when they sort of were saved from oblivion in the early 2000s by one of the great grands. Parmigiani. All Parmigiani are in house, I think, by Michel Parmigiani. I was thinking of H. Moser. I think they are. I don't know of any of them that aren't, but there could be. Okay. Well, look, guys, as Rancher said, time is up. So I'm going to back to whatever I have to do. Anyway, guys, take care. See you soon. Some of you, we got so much stuff going on.